Encyclopedyfy reads for you. Today, COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. There are curfews, quarantines, and similar restrictions variously described as stay-at-home orders, shelter-in-place orders, shutdowns or lockdowns in place in many countries and territories around the world. Related to the COVID-19 pandemic and established to prevent the further spread of the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2, which causes COVID-19. By April 2020, about half of the world's population was under lockdown, with more than 3.9 billion people in more than 90 countries or territories having been asked or ordered to stay at home by their governments. The World Health Organization's recommendation on curfews and lockdowns is that they should be short-term measures to reorganize, regroup, rebalance resources, and protect health workers who are exhausted. To achieve a balance between restrictions and normal life, the long-term responses to the pandemic should consist of strict personal hygiene, effective contact tracing, and isolating when ill. Countries and territories around the world have enforced lockdowns of varying degrees. Some include total movement control, while others have enforced restrictions based on time. Mostly, only essential businesses are allowed to remain open. Schools, universities and colleges have closed either on a nationwide or local basis in 80 countries, affecting approximately 61.6% of the world's student population. All types of recreational venues and most public places have been affected. Pandemic lockdowns. Closing of schools and kindergartens. Closing of non-essential shops and stores apart from food, doctors and drugstores. Closing of non-essential production. Cancellation of recreational venues and closing of public places. Curfews, stay-at-home orders and total movement control. These measures are considered to have caused the coronavirus recession in 2020. The table does not contain measures with smaller economic impacts like border closures, social distancing measures and social movement restrictions, travel restrictions, other non-pharmaceutical anti-pandemic measures like mandatory quarantines after travel, self-quarantine and social distancing measures. Any measures which are voluntary rather than enforceable by law. The pandemic has resulted in the largest number of lockdowns worldwide at the same time in history. Citation needed. By the 26th of March, 1.7 billion people worldwide were under some form of lockdown, which increased to 3.9 billion people by the first week of April, more than half of the world's population. Restrictions first began in China, with other countries in East Asia like Vietnam soon following it and implementing widespread containment measures. Much of Europe, North America and Africa took much longer to bring in tough measures. Lockdowns between and within nations are of varying stringency. By mid-April, nearly 300 million people, or about 90% of the population, were under some form of lockdown in the United States, around 100 million in the Philippines, about 59 million in South Africa, and 1.3 billion were under lockdown in India, the largest of all lockdowns. Check the list of COVID-19 hotspots or containment zones of India. By the end of April, around 300 million people were under lockdown in various countries of Europe, including but not limited to Italy, Spain, France, and the United Kingdom. While around 200 million people were under lockdown in Latin America. Countries and territories with lockdowns. China was the first country to enforce the quarantine and lockdown of cities and later whole provinces in late January. Fiji. From the 17th of March 2020, all people in France were required to complete and carry an exemption form to leave their homes and can be fined for non-essential journeys. India. On the 22nd of March 2020, the government of India decided to completely lock down 82 districts in 22 states and union territories of country where confirmed cases have been reported till the 31st of March. Indonesia reported its first 2 positive COVID-19 cases on the 2nd of March 2020. Ireland. On the 12th of March, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar announced the closure of all schools, colleges and childcare facilities in Ireland until the end of August. Italy. On the 9th of March 2020, the government of Italy under Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte imposed a national quarantine, restricting the movement of the population except for necessity, work, and health circumstances in response to the growing pandemic of COVID-19 in the country. New Zealand. On the 23rd of March 2020, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern raised New Zealand's COVID-19 alert level to 3 and announced the closure of all schools beginning on that day, and 2 days later moved to 4 at 11:59 p.m. on the 25th of March 2020, a nationwide lockdown. While all sporting matches and events as well as non-essential services such as pools, bars, cafes, restaurants, playgrounds closed, essential services such as supermarkets, petrol stations, and health services remained open. United Kingdom, national stay-at-home order. At 8:30 p.m. on the 23rd of March 2020, Boris Johnson announced a stay-at-home order effective immediately. Dubious, discuss, though only legally effective from 1 midnight on the 26th of March 2020, through the Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions England Regulations 2020. The slogan "Stay Home, Protect the NHS, Save Lives" was used. All non-essential shops and services were ordered to close, and police were granted powers to issue fines, send people home, especially persons suspected of being infected, and to break up gatherings of more than 2 people. United States. Stay-at-home orders in the United States have come from several states and a large number of local jurisdictions, sometimes leading to conflicts between different levels of government and a patchwork of inconsistent dates and rules. On the 15th of March 2020, Puerto Rico Governor Wanda Vázquez-Garcés signed an executive order to order all citizens to stay home starting at 9 p.m. with exceptions in limited circumstances between 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. Governmental operations and non-essential businesses were to be closed until the 30th of March. The first order within the states was simultaneously imposed by health authorities in heart of the San Francisco Bay Area, Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, San Mateo, and Santa Clara counties and the cities of San Francisco and Berkeley, effective the 17th of March 2020, affecting nearly 6.7 million people. Other cities and counties across the state followed suit over the next 2 days, until Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, issued a statewide order effective the 19th of March 2020. Countries and territories without lockdowns. Almost all countries and territories affected with COVID-19 have introduced and enforced some form of lockdown. However, countries like South Korea and Taiwan, which relied on contact tracing by cell phones, have far fewer cases and deaths. Among the ones not following this strategy are, most notably, Sweden. Measures in Sweden included the closing of universities and high schools and asking older and at-risk residents to avoid social contact, while keeping restaurants, primary schools and kindergartens open. Countries in Asia without lockdowns include Japan and South Korea. Nicaragua is also yet to impose a lockdown, while a proposed lockdown by the government has been ordered to be delayed by the High Court in Malawi. In the United States and Brazil, a handful of states have not introduced any lockdown-type measures, commonly known as stay-at-home orders. Encyclopedyfy read it for you. Please help the channel with your like, subscribe and tell us what you want your next reading to be.